A love of old maps, growing up in Tennessee, Hans Christian Andersen, and I think a stint with the Radical Fairies. You're going to learn all about that tonight from our next guest, artist Mark Garrett. Welcome.
Welcome.
So how did a nice boy from Tennessee make his way here?
Well, I moved here in '89, actually, via New York City. I was working for Pace Gallery in New York after 4 years of art school in Memphis. And then I made my way to San Francisco and ended up working in the private sector art world as an art handler for Frankel Gallery. And then around the time of the Loma Prieta earthquake, everything shifted. And
Pardon the pun.
I started working for the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco as an art handler. And that morphed into a more specific position there as a principal matter and framer for prints and drawings for the Achenbach Foundation, which is the Fine Arts Museum's collection, the city's actually the city's collection of works on paper. And it was a profound experience for me. I just took an early retirement from that job after 23 years of service in the museums, and it was astounding, really. It was the most incredible collection, from everything from Dürer to de Kooning, Rembrandt to Ed Ruscha. I mean, it's a 100,000 piece collection, and it really informed my sensibility artistically and kind of took over my life for the last quarter century.
So what's it like being on this side of the canvas versus the person that's framing and administering and putting together collections for someone else? Well, equally as satisfying?
Yeah, I mean, I had always been making art since I graduated from art school. I was participating in group shows very occasionally. I wasn't fully dedicating myself to my practice until now. And so it really shifted my focus in the last 3 years. I got a dedicated studio thanks to a coach that I got, Daniel Goldstein, who I think you've also interviewed.
I know Daniel very well.
And he actually helped me, he and my partner, Eric Smith, helped me sort of catapult this, realize how much I needed to get this done and before too much longer passed. And so I started sensing that I thought I was gonna start painting initially, and in fact, I got this studio and I just exploded with ideas, and it took me, I was spinning my wheels for a couple of years, and then finally I realized I just need to slow down and go to one of my initial loves, which was working with paper and collage as particularly. It's the most accessible medium for me, drawing and collage, and I think for a lot of people, it's very easy to start working that way when you have so many ideas. So that was it, really. Maps were not particularly something that jumped out at me.
So they didn't call to you?
No, not especially. I mean, I had always been fascinated by them. I have always had some kind of collection of them. I think it was during a trip we were traveling, and I had taken some maps with me as an idea of folding and cutting. And it was also around the same time that a friend had lent me a copy of Hans Christian Andersen's paper cutouts. And they're very intricate. A lot of people don't know him for his paper cutouts. They know him more for his storytelling. And his hometown in Denmark actually has a massive collection of his cutouts that have been saved, and they're very elaborate and they're very beautiful, and they have this polarity to them of light and dark, and not just in the cutouts themselves, but in some of the imagery that he was cutting.
Right.
So
when you select the maps that are going to be the subject of one of your art pieces, how do you select them? Do you like, oh, I've been there, or I want to go there, or I just like the way the interstate lines, merge with the rural roots and the colors? How do you select it? Well, I mean, is there something behind the collage itself that you're trying to say to us as an artist? I mean, should I look at it and say, that's a map of Tennessee, and that's a map of Egypt. What's Mark trying to tell me? Rarely
do I ever think about that so much. I'm more drawn to the visual aspects of the map, the colors, particularly the colors, the compositions, we think traditionally of maps as being very straightforward and flat, but in fact there's all kinds of topographics, there's Mercator projections where the meridians of the Earth curve, and those created just automatic sort of dimensionality to me for when I was cutting them. And I would fold them, and I would open them up, and there'd be this beautiful, transformative, three-dimensional form.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're probably dating yourself too, because in less than half a generation, people are going to go, "A what? A map?
That much more valuable.
Where do I push and make it pop up? Where's my pen? Come on, maps are kind of archaic now."
Yeah.
Is that what you like them?
It is part of what I love, because I was inspired by a lot of old things that are incorporated into art. Rauschenberg, Cornell, these are Joseph Cornell, were huge inspirations for me, and people that really informed part of my artistic sensibility.
Right. Now, you said you worked a lot behind the scenes, framing and doing stuff that was of service to other artists, and I know a number of artists and work with them who have lives on both sides of the canvas, as I said. And this is a personal observation, that those artists who have spent a lot of time framing other artists' work tend to have some really unique expressions. Like, you don't see a lot of collagists out there. I mean, why that? And do you think people take you as seriously as they do a painter? Or do they just go, "Oh, Mark's just putting sticky glue on a canvas"?
I think it's changed, because I think works on paper have always been short-shrifted in the art world, especially in the museum world. But I do see it changing, and I see a lot of collage artists that are being far more celebrated to the same extent that painters and sculptors are. I would want to stress that it's not everything and all I will ever do, because I love all these other mediums, and I just happen to be doing this particular medium right now. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's something that's not always given as much credibility as paintings or sculpture, but
well, in the same way that commercial art took for a long time for people to actually treat that seriously.
Right.
Someone like a Norman Rockwell is now considered a great American artist, but for a long time it's just like, well, that's the guy that illustrates the Saturday Evening Post.
That's right.
So I understand that in between Memphis and New York and here and the collage, you had another life experience that you'd like to share with us a little bit. I understand you were a member of the Radical Fairies.
I was, and have been, and continue to be to some extent. I think it's...
Do you ever really leave the Radical Fairies,
You never really leave. I'm not sure anybody knows when they actually arrive, but it was a profound experience for me, and actually led to some really wonderful relationships with people, not the least of which was Harry Hay and John Burnside, who Harry Hay is considered the founding father of the Radical Fairies, he and John together. But before that, Harry was considered the founding father of the modern gay rights movement in many ways, through the Mattachine Society and so forth. But I was part of a small circle of Radical Fairies here locally that made a decision to move them from LA, where they could no longer get the care that they needed down there. And we moved them up here, took care of their health care needs, their housing needs, and basically took care of them until they died, really. Harry in 2002 and then John in 2008. And gave them a quality of life that they wouldn't have had where they were in Los Angeles. And it was a profound experience, not just because I got to get to know them so well, but I also met my life partner, Eric Smith, through that caregiving circle. Right. And we've been together now 14 years.
For those who may not be familiar with the Radical Fairies, give us, if you can, briefly, a synopsis of this incredibly eclectic, colorful, political group that Harry and his cohorts founded, and what was their goal, and where are they now?
Well, Harry he was on a mission to speak about, anti-assimilation of gay people. And I think he really wanted to give a sense of the diversity of that. But just within the gay male culture, he knew that there was more of a sense of us being able to relate to each other subject-wise, as opposed to subject-object, which is more like looking at someone and just observing how beautiful they are. by subject, he meant you were looking into them personally, spiritually, emotionally, seeing who they are conversationally and so forth, and sexually too. I mean, it was a very sexual. Sexuality is a big component of.
Yeah, there's a lot of rolling around under redwoods, as I heard it described to me once by a radical fairy. I don't think I'm saying anything inappropriate that my friend would have been upset with.
No, I don't think so. But also, I have to say that I was just, there's a great Wikipedia page for the radical fairy movement. And I recommend people go to it and check it out, as well as a
Did
great
you write
survey of. No, I didn't. But I think you may know Joey Kane. I believe he may have written it, but I'm not sure.
Right. So what do you think is their mission, if there is a mission to being a radical fairy now?
A mission? I would say it's a very loosely connected body of people who really, it's a very spiritual motivation towards connectivity with the earth and one another, and developing relationships that way with people you know and love. And
so, how does that experience influence your art?
That experience probably most influenced my art visibly through the organic nature of my work. Before I was even doing works on paper, there was a period of time where I was taking branches and weaving like very sinewy branches together and making these large wire spiraling sculptures that would either hang or free form in the floor. And that was a very organic process for me, and it spoke very much about the spiraling concept that comes up a lot in I think fairy culture. And I haven't, a lot of the culture is defined by for people who end up going to gatherings a lot, but it's also very much a self-identification thing.
So they're not fading away. I mean,
not at all. There's communities all over the country, all over the world now, fairy communities, and they're quite a fixture in and of themselves. But I'm less involved in the I would say in the movement of it, if there is one, than I have been for several years now. But I love my experience of that and what I got from it.
Right. In our last few moments, talk to me about this next show that you have coming up and where we're going to see it and what sort of work is it? It is maps, it is collage.
It is, and it's very, it's kind of an explosive sort of coming out, if you will, of a lot of new work for me, because I don't, it's really a first solo exhibition for me, and I'm very excited about it. It's about 20 works on paper, varying sizes, and it involves maps that have been folded, and I actually draw with scissors. I use scissors as a drawing tool, and rather than people look at these and they think I cut with a knife, but in fact that would drive me crazy. So I draw with scissors.
Hence the name of the exhibition.
I basically deconstruct, yes. I deconstruct these maps and then I start applying them, rearranging them and applying them, sometimes back into their intended form, in their original form, but not always. And it really just, they take shape on their own. And I have to say it happens pretty organically, but they end up looking a bit like maps, but very dislocated. The original maps, but in a more dislocated fashion.
Maybe a fairy circle map. So who knows?
Perhaps.
Well, but before the art of map making and creating art with maps disappears entirely to Google Maps, we'll get over to see your exhibit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Mark Garrett about his art and the radical fairy movement. Next up, we will meet Masashi Niwano and speak about the gay Asian filmmaking experience. We'll be right back.
Thank you
so much. Yeah.